St. Paul, the capital and second most populated city of Minnesota, along with their twin city, Minneapolis, form one of the largest metropolitan hubs for industrial and recreational living in the region. Minnesota is a state in the northern Midwest, bordering both Canada as well as Lake Superior. St. Paul sits in the southeastern section of the state, where it is situated mostly on the northern bank of the Mississippi River. Its southwestern corner also houses the convergence of the Minnesota and Mississippi rivers. Its western border it also shares with its twin city Minneapolis, thus creating one of the largest metropolitan areas in the U.S. Minnesota has very cold winters and hot summers, with a diverse climate of regions.
The earliest known inhabitants of the area were the Sioux and Ojibwe peoples. In 1805, Lieutenant Zebulon Montgomery Pike, who was the leader of an expedition to explore the Mississippi River, signed a treaty with the Sioux people for ownership of the territory. In 1849, St. Paul became the capital of the Minnesota Territory. In 1858, when Minnesota became a state, St. Paul became its state capital. St. Paul was very historically significant when it came to the uprising of the Midwest as an industrial center. St. Paul, being placed along the Mississippi River, greatly spurred its growth. It grew steadily, and besides the economic difficulties that St. Paul faced in the mid-20th century, in the 1970s it was given large renovations, and today remains to be a large education, industrial, mining, healthcare, and financial hub. St. Paul and Minnesota in general have suffered mainly through fires and blizzards. St. Paul was entirely destroyed by a fire in 1881, and another 3-day blizzard hit Minnesota in January in 1873, killing 70 Minnesotans. In 1888, Minnesota had another blizzard, killing 109. Another forest fire in 1894 killed over 400. In 1940, Armistice blizzard hit, and 49 people died.
St. Paul is host to an array of famous people, possibly being the most famous Francis Scott Key Fitzgerald. He was born in St. Paul and went to St. Paul University. He also finished his first novel, The Side of Paradise, in St. Paul. Prince also grew up in Minneapolis, the twin city of St. Paul. He began his musical career in Minneapolis, and it is where he branched off into the rest of the world. Charles Schulz, the creator of Peanuts, grew up in St. Paul. Warren Earl Burger was the 15th Chief Justice of the United States, serving from 1969 to 1986. Born in St. Paul, Minnesota, Burger graduated from the St. Paul College of Law in 1931.
From tater tots to cheese stuffed burgers to even butter loaded coffee, Minnesota has a diverse and strange taste. Its large European population greatly affects the popular foods. Famous cuisines include sausage and sauerbraten sprouting from Germany. The smorgasbord, a Scandinavian buffet, is also a large part of St. Paul cuisine. Lefse is a commonly enjoyed food in St. Paul, which is a Norwegian dish. One of the dishes in St. Paul is notorious for is called hot dish, which is a tater tot casserole made with vegetables and beef. St. Paul also has been known for its baked goods and sweets.
St. Paul's earliest roots began in gospel, jazz, and the blues. There are a lot of local bands, such as Soul Asylum, the Jayhawks, and Motion City. Some of the bands have gone really popular, like Crow, Gear Daddies, and even Prince. St. Paul is host to the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra, which is the only full-time chamber orchestra in the nation. Bob Dylan was also born in Duluth, just north of St. Paul.
When it comes to sports, St. Paul and Minnesota have a wide variety of both winter and summer sports. The most popular winter sports include ice hockey, sledding, outdoor ice skating, cross-country skiing, ice fishing, and more. When it comes to summer sports, popular ones include sailing, canoeing, inner tubing, and fishing. They also have a large amount of sports teams, the most popular of which are St. Paul Saints, a popular baseball team, the Minnesota Fighting Saints, who compete in hockey, the Minnesota Timberwolves, who compete in basketball, the Minnesota Lynx, also in basketball, the Minnesota Wild, another ice hockey team, the Minnesota Twins in baseball, the Minnesota Vikings competing in the NFL, and finally the Minnesota Golden Gophers in volleyball.
St. Paul, with its wacky tastes, rich culture, and unique background, make it one of the most diverse and fun places to live in the world.